How much should I back squat? Today we talk about the amount of back squat sessions a week, the sets and reps that you can do in a back squat, as well as the loading parameter as it relates to the 1RM, but also to your body weight. So how much should I back squat? How much can refer to the amount of sessions per week. For Olympic weightlifters, actually the amount of sessions per day, because Olympic weightlifters, their sport is lifting weight off the ground. Sometimes they do more than one session where they back squat on a day. But again, there we need to have a closer look at the volume and intensities. They don't squat heavy every single day. So back to the topic, how much should I back squat in terms of sessions per week, talking about the frequency. Again, in my world, where the athletes have more responsibilities than just lifting weights, we are limited to 2 to 3 sessions a week. So we need to see how many sessions we should do back squats or not. My preference is always to change the exercises throughout the week, so doing back squats on one day and then maybe front squats on another day, and then a variation of single leg squats on the third day. But if you choose to do back squats in every session, that's also okay, but then you need to have a look at the loading parameters. I wouldn't recommend doing heavy squats in every session, so I would definitely balance the volume and intensity throughout the week, not doing the same thing in every single session. So let's get some quantifiable numbers. If we're talking about how many times should you squat in a week, in my opinion, squatting, as I discussed earlier, is a fundamental movement skill. So if we have 2 sessions, we can also squat 2 times a week. If we have 3 sessions, we can also squat 3 times a week. But again, I would change it up either in terms of exercise selection, so doing a variation of squat on every day, or if I do back squats in every single session, then have a look at the loading parameter. So one session would be close to exhaustion and one little bit further away from exhaustion. What about the volume, the sets and reps? Again, that depends very much on your goal. So are you interested in becoming stronger? Are you interested in becoming more powerful? Are you interested in becoming bigger? Or are you interested in lasting efforts for longer? That determines very much the amount of repetitions you do. Simply put, if we want to become stronger, I usually use 2 repetition zones. One is between 1 and 3 repetitions, the other one is between 3 and 5 repetitions. If we're looking at hypertrophy, depending whether we want to look at functional hypertrophy or non-functional hypertrophy, we can work between 4 to 6 reps. We can use 4 to 6 reps for functional hypertrophy and maybe 8 to 10, 8 to 12 for non-functional hypertrophy. If we want to endure efforts, there are also a couple of ways. The strength endurance I will discuss in a later video because it's a topic in itself. But you can either go for multiple repetitions at a stretch, talking about 15, 20, 30, 40 even, or you can more work in terms of working for a period of time, let's say 20 seconds squatting, 20 seconds rest, and repeat that cycle. One word to the sets. The amount of sets very much depend on the intensity. So the higher the intensity and the closer we get to exhaustion, the lesser the amount of sets. The more further away we are from exhaustion, the more sets we can do. So let me give you a quantifiable example. If we're working at, let's say, 95% of our 1RM, that will allow us to lift this weight for 2 to 3 repetitions, depending on the athlete. So I could prescribe 3 sets of 2 repetitions at 95% of the 1RM. If we're looking at 90% of the 1RM for 2 repetitions, we are not as close to exhaustion as in the previous example. I could prescribe more sets. So, for example, we do 6 sets, 2 repetitions at 90% of the 1 RM. So I hope you get the idea of balancing the volume and intensity. So again, a difficult one now, the loading parameter in relation to the 1 RM. So the 1 RM is the weight you can lift for 1 repetition. Especially in the back squat, I see a lot of mistakes when we test the back squat. So what we need to make sure is that we test the back squat, and in the test we determine the depth of the squat. So what I see sometimes, if we don't determine the squat, the load gets heavier and the depth gets less and less. So we end up testing, let's say, a half squat at 90%, and in training we use these percentages to describe a full squat or a deep squat. So really make sure you're testing and you have criteria in the testing for the depth. Because otherwise you're comparing kind of apples with oranges, right? So you test a squat to 90 degrees and in training you want them to squat to 60 degrees, and that's not going to work and lead to a lot of frustration in the athlete and the coach. Back to the topic of loading in relation to the 1 RM. So again, if we want to work on strength, we've discussed that before, we work on 85% of the 1 RM or above. If we work on hypertrophy, depending whether it's functional or non-functional hypertrophy, we work in between, let's say, 65-70 to 85%. If we're working on strength endurance, we work at a much lower intensity, so 60% of the 1 RM or less. So now a quick word to strength and the loading in terms of in relation to the body weight. So you must have read that many times before. You should squat 2 times your body weight or 1.5 whatsoever. From my experience, that's a good indicator to see how strong someone is. Put the squatting number in relation to the body weight. But a word of caution, first and foremost, we need to have the right technique to do that. And secondly, we need to look a little bit at the sport and the individual. So if you have heard everyone should be able to do 2 times their body weight, I have to admit I have not found that in every athlete. Even though I have very dedicated athletes, not everyone gets to 2 times their body weight. So let's put it simple. If we look at the full squat, talking about 60%, talking about 60 degrees knee angle or below, a good number would be 1.5. If you can exceed 1.5 of your body weight, you are pretty good. Again, depending on the athletes, I work with BMX and track cycling at the moment. There, the strength and power is a big part of their competition and also the physical performance. So for them, yeah, they get to 2 times their body weight. But I also work with mountain bike, for example, also cycling, but more the endurance side. And these athletes are also very, very committed, but just because of the nature of the sport and sitting on the bike for long, they don't do 2 times their body weight. But they can get up to 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 even, yeah? So be careful with these numbers. Look at the individual and also look at the sport. Yeah? If your sport is determined very much from strength and power, you can expect them to do 2 times their body weight. But if their sport doesn't require a lot of strength and power efforts, I also worked with equestrian at some time, I don't think they would ever be able to do 2 times their body weight. Yeah? So as a recap, look at the sport. So as a quick recap, we spoke about the frequency, the amount of sessions per week. Depending on your goal, you should choose the sessions per week. Depending on your goal, you should also choose the set and rep scheme. Remember, there is a direct relation between intensity and sets and reps. So the heavier you train, the less sets you're more likely to do. And the last one is percentage of the 1 RM as it relates to your goal. So the more you want to work on strength, the higher the intensity. If you want to work on hypertrophy, you're more in a range of 65 to 70%, up to 85%. And if you want to train for power, you most likely want to do more, you most likely want to use less than 60% of your 1RM, and then for multiple repetitions. And really the last word is the strength in relation to your body weight. The video is a bit long, so I'm losing my concentration here. Sorry for that. So the strength in relation to your body weight. And as I discussed, if your sport is very strength and power determined, you can expect your athletes to go up to 2 times their body weight in a full squat. We're talking about a full squat, so 60-degree or less in the knee angle. If your sport is less power determined, you might look at 1.2 to 1.5 times their body weight.